The night before she died, Linda sent him a message. She wrote, "I love you. I feel kinda weird. I don't know what to expect tomorrow. You've never done anything like this for me before, and I feel a little nervous." He wrote back, "It's no big deal, just trying to show you that I can be romantic." He had prepared a space in the back of her car. He had draped a blanket across the cargo area. It read, "Happy birthday. Hope your birthday is out of this world." Linda Campitelli was 35 years old. She was a registered nurse and a mother of 2 young girls. She left her home on the evening of the 28th of October, 2024, dressed in a red dress and black heels, believing she was going to celebrate her birthday. She never came home, and what investigators uncovered over the following 17 months was a trail of secret messages, deleted phones, and forensic evidence that revealed one of the most chilling truths imaginable about the last hours of her life. She had sensed something. She said so herself. She went anyway.
A woman found dead on the side of the road in Palm Beach County.
A serious murder of a Palm Beach County nurse whose body was found on the side of the road more than a year ago.
Now, we told you yesterday Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputies arrested a suspect in the death of Linda Campitelli.
A nurse brutally murdered. Her body left abandoned on the side of the road, and now about a year and a half after her death, an arrest has been made.
Linda Marie Casanas was born on the 14th of October, 1989, in Miami, Florida. Sharp, driven, and deeply warm, the kind of person who threw herself into everything and pulled the people around her along with her. She earned a full academic scholarship to the University of Miami, graduating with a degree in health science before completing an accelerated nursing program. She was inducted into the Sigma Theta Tau Nursing Honor Society. Her obituary noted she had a near photographic memory. The nursing profession was not something she fell into. It was something she was built for. She began her career in 2014 at South Miami Hospital. The following year, at Larkin Hospital in Miami, she met Dr. John Campitelli, a medical resident. They bonded over fishing, boating, and the open water. He proposed. They married in April 2016, settled in Wellington, Palm Beach County, and had 2 daughters, Madison and Olivia. By October 2024, Linda was a registered PACU nurse at Wellington Regional Medical Center, the ward where patients wake after surgery, frightened and disoriented. She had been accepted into an advanced nursing program. A new position at a nearby Cleveland clinic was due to start in December. Everything was moving forward. Her mother, Edina Russo, said simply, "She was my best friend." Somewhere along the way, something fractured. Linda and John had entered marriage counseling. The details of what drove them there have never been made public. But the picture that investigators would later piece together told a story that no one in Linda's family had seen coming. At Wellington Regional Medical Center, Linda had met a colleague. His name was Rene J. Perez, 38 years old at the time of his arrest, a registered nurse who worked alongside her in the PACU. According to the probable cause affidavit later filed by the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office, the two began an extramarital affair around 2022. It lasted approximately 2 years. Both were married. Perez had a wife and at least 1 son. Linda had John and her 2 daughters. The relationship was conducted in near total secrecy. They communicated almost daily through WhatsApp. They talked about their families, their work, their lives, and their feelings for one another. Investigators later described the messages as including intimate conversations, declarations of love, and the exchange of photographs that confirmed this was not a professional relationship. Perez went to considerable lengths to keep it hidden. He shared a Life 360 location tracking application with his wife, an app that showed his real-time movements on her phone. So, when he wanted to see Linda, he would leave his primary phone at his office and take a separate device instead. His whereabouts, as far as his wife could see, never changed. He was always at work. He was always exactly where he said he was. Perez would later leave Wellington Regional and take a position as a PACU nurse at Delray Medical Center. He had previously worked at a building called the Retina Group of Florida on Medical Park Boulevard in Wellington. That address would become central to everything that followed. For John Campitelli, none of this was visible. He was in marriage counseling with a woman whose other life he could not see. Her mother had no idea. Her family had no idea. Then came late October 2024. Linda had turned 35 on the 14th. The birthday had come and gone. But on the evening of the 27th, there were messages between them. Perez told her he wanted to do something special. A belated birthday celebration. Something romantic. Linda wrote, "I love you. I feel kinda weird. I don't know what to expect tomorrow. You've never done anything like this for me before, and I feel a little nervous." He replied, "It's no big deal. Just trying to show you that I can be romantic." She asked if he was certain about the plans. He confirmed that he was. They exchanged more messages of love and said goodnight. She had a feeling. She named it. She went anyway. The following evening, Linda, dressed in a red dress and black heels, told John she was going to dinner with friends and drove away in his Chevrolet Tahoe. What the people who loved her did not know then, and would only understand months later, is that the truth was not simple. And when it emerged, it made an already unbearable loss even harder to carry, for John especially. Widowed without warning, left to raise 2 young girls alone, he would learn in the worst possible way what had been happening behind closed doors. What follows is reconstructed from the probable cause, affidavit, surveillance footage, cell phone data, and vehicle infotainment records. At approximately 6:30 in the evening, surveillance cameras at Delray Medical Center captured Perez leaving the building and driving away in his Honda Accord. He was wearing dark, compact shoes. He had later told investigators he never left work that night and had departed at around 11 p.m. The footage showed something very different. At approximately 7:23 p.m., cameras captured Linda leaving her residential development in the Tahoe. She had told John she was going out for dinner. By 7:30, she had arrived at 1397 Medical Park Boulevard in Wellington, the building where Perez had previously worked. Investigators later described it as isolated, dimly lit, with very little foot traffic in the evening hours. It had not been chosen at random. What happened over the next 90 minutes was recorded, not by any witness, but by a single photograph. At 8:12 and 53 seconds in the evening, an image was captured on Linda Campitelli's iPhone. The shot shows the interior of the Tahoe. The rear seats have been folded flat. Spread across the flattened surface are Ultrasorb medical absorption sheets, the kind used daily in hospital settings to manage fluid. A birthday blanket has been draped across the cargo area. It is printed with a celebratory message: "Happy birthday. Hope your birthday is out of this world." The question that would follow investigators and everyone following this case was this: how does a birthday surprise end up staged inside someone else's husband's car? The answer, based on what the affidavit establishes, is not romantic. The sheets and blanket were not pre-placed for Linda to discover. They were assembled at the scene, at that isolated car park, after the 2 of them had arrived. The Ultrasorb sheets are not an impulsive grab. They are sourced from a hospital setting. They had been brought deliberately. The blanket was custom printed. These were not the actions of someone swept up in spontaneous feeling. The investigators believed the space had been prepared in advance, prepared for what happened next. That photograph was the last image ever captured on Linda Campitelli's phone. At approximately 9:59 p.m., surveillance footage from the area showed the Tahoe leaving the Medical Park Boulevard location. Investigators believe the person driving it was not Linda. Cell tower data showed a prepaid phone associated with Perez and Linda's phone traveling together from Medical Park Boulevard, heading south along US 441 and then east onto Lyons Road. Then came the 911 calls. At approximately 10:18 p.m., the first of several emergency calls came in. callers reported an unresponsive woman lying in the southbound lanes of Lyons Road in suburban Lake Worth. One caller described her as bleeding profusely from the mouth. 8 minutes later, Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the 6100 block of Lyons Road. What they found was devastating. Linda Campitelli was lying face down in a pool of blood, roughly 50 feet from the Chevrolet Tahoe, which sat on the shoulder of the road, still running, all doors closed, the front driver's side tire flat. A blood trail led from the passenger side of the vehicle to her body. Her mobile phone was found approximately 25 feet from where she lay, the torch application open and illuminated. She was still wearing the red dress and the black heels she had left home in. She was pronounced dead at the scene. The scene had been arranged. The flat tire, investigators would later confirm, contained an embedded metal screw consistent with deliberate sabotage. The illuminated torch on a phone lying in the road. A woman face down nearby, her back covered in tar stains from the tarmac, the heels of her shoes worn completely flat from being dragged across it, the door of the Tahoe closed, the engine running. It had been staged to look like an accident, as though Linda had pulled over in the dark, noticed the flat tire, stepped out to investigate, and been struck by a passing vehicle. As though there was no crime. As though there was no one else involved. It was not an accident. The medical examiner would confirm that later. But first, just before midnight, surveillance cameras at Delray Medical Center showed Rene Perez returning to the building. He was wearing dark, compact shoes, the same shoes he had worn when he left at 6:30 p.m. At around 12:06 a.m., he was captured leaving again. As he passed a waste bin near the doctor's entrance, he paused and discarded something. There is a 16-second gap in the motion-triggered surveillance footage at precisely that moment. When the footage resumes, he continues to his car. He is now wearing a different pair of shoes, light grey ones. The dark shoes he had arrived in that morning were never found. John Campitelli reported his wife missing that night. He had not heard from her. The following morning, the Palm Beach County Medical Examiner conducted a post-mortem. The findings were catastrophic. A skull fracture, 4 large lacerations to the right side of her scalp, brain contusions, a fatal accumulation of blood inside her skull, fractured ribs, a lacerated lung, bruising around her right eye, injuries consistent with repeated forceful blows. Her heels were, in the affidavit's words, completely worn down, disfigured, and distorted, clearly indicative of being compressed against the roadway whilst being dragged or moved with force. The back of her red dress was torn and darkened with tar. She had been beaten inside that vehicle, transported, placed on the road and left there. The medical examiner ruled the manner of death, homicide, blunt force trauma to the head and torso. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office opened a homicide investigation immediately. Linda's friends were among the first to be interviewed, and within days, investigators understood something important. Linda had not gone to dinner with friends. She had never told any of them she was going out that evening. The cover story, the simple, deniable, completely untraceable cover story of going to dinner with friends, had been used because there was someone she had been hiding. By the 29th of October, investigators knew about the affair. By the 1st of November, a search warrant had been obtained for Linda's iPhone. When investigators extracted the contents, they found thousands of WhatsApp messages between Linda and Rene Perez. The evidence of the relationship was vast and detailed. It placed the two of them together on the night she died, and critically, it showed that no cancellation message had ever been sent. Perez had told investigators he called off the birthday meeting because his son was ill. Investigators searched through every communication on Linda's phone. There was no cancellation, not a message, not a missed call, not a single word from him on the evening of the 28th before her death. He had been with her. He had lied about being with her. Inside the Tahoe, forensic examiners using the blood detection agent Blue Star found blood throughout the interior. The affidavit stated that blood had permeated through the vehicle's speakers. On the rear driver's side door handle, bloodstains appeared to have been partially wiped. Linda's Apple Watch was recovered from the center console, blood on both sides of it. Investigators concluded it had been removed from her wrist after the attack. The birthday blanket that had appeared in the 8:12 p.m. photograph, the one that had been carefully hung across the cargo space, was gone, removed, taken by whoever drove that car out of Medical Park Boulevard at 9:59 p.m. And then there were the medical sheets. The ultrasorb sheets visible in the photograph were identical to sheets found during a later search of Perez's residence. He had access to them through his work at Delray Medical Center. He had brought them to that car park. He had thought about what was going to happen in that car park. The investigators believed the birthday setup was not a gift, it was preparation. Here is where Rene Perez's account began to collapse. He had told investigators about 2 phones. There were 3. Phone number 1 was his primary phone, the one his wife could track via Life 360. He left it at work whenever he met Linda, so that his location, as shown on his wife's app, would never change. He was always at work. He had been doing this for 2 years. Phone number 2 was his work phone, the device he claimed his employer could reach him on whilst he was away from the building. He told police about both of those phones. What he did not tell them about was phone number 3. In January 2026, an analysis of a phone number registered to a false name, linked to a prepaid Cricket Wireless account, came back with something significant. Investigators were able to connect that number to Perez through his usage patterns at work. And on the night of the 28th of October, the data showed this third phone, the one he had never mentioned, moving in close proximity to Linda's phone from 7:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. from Medical Park Boulevard, south along US 441, east onto Lyons Road. He had told investigators he never left work that night. His unregistered burner phone had been there, every step of the way. He had told investigators he had 2 phones. There were 3. He had told investigators he never left work. The surveillance footage and the infotainment system from his own Honda Accord showed approximately 20 miles, driven in a 33-minute window that night. A distance and route entirely consistent with the locations at the center of this case. He had told investigators he sent a cancellation message. There was no cancellation message. There was, however, one more lie that would be the simplest to expose. On the 13th of November, Perez walked into an AT&T store and purchased a new Samsung Galaxy S 24 Plus. He told investigators he had lost his old Samsung Galaxy S 23 and needed to replace it. The store had security cameras. The footage showed Perez entering the store. In one hand, the new phone he was about to buy. In the other hand, the Samsung Galaxy S 23 he had told investigators he lost. He walked out with both. The old phone, the one that contained the WhatsApp conversation history between himself and Linda, was never recovered. His new phone had been forensically examined. Linda's number was in his contacts. There were no WhatsApp messages whatsoever. Thousands of messages existed on her phone. None on his. Investigators noted this was consistent with intentional deletion. The Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office had been building their case for over a year. And sometimes the simplest catches are the most damning. They had the receipts. Literally. Captain Michael Ott later explained the delay. The cell phone analytical work was enormously time-consuming. One specific key piece of evidence had not been identified until early 2026. More than 50 search warrants. Hundreds of hours of data. Keycard logs, GPS records, Life 360 history, license plate recognition, and the infotainment system of Perez's own Honda. All of it pointing in one direction. Throughout those 17 months, Linda's mother refused to go quiet. She went to the media. She appealed to the community. She told reporters, "There's somebody walking around who shattered a bunch of lives, and that person is walking free. That is unacceptable." By early 2026, the case was ready. On the 10th of March, 2026, Rene J. Perez was arrested in Miami. He was transported to Palm Beach County Jail and charged with first-degree murder with a deadly weapon and tampering with physical evidence. At his first court appearance, a judge denied bond. He faces life in prison or the death penalty if convicted. No plea had been entered. Linda's mother spoke to the media after the arrest. "There's a million emotions. I'm obviously always sad, but there's a sense of closure." Of Perez, she said, "What kind of human does that? Animals don't even do that." Of John, she was clear. "I love him like he's my own son." Linda's family established Linda's Legacy, a scholarship fund at the University of Miami School of Nursing, so that deserving students might have the same opportunity she was given all those years ago. She gave, as her obituary noted, in death as she had given in life. The night before she died, she wrote, "I feel a little nervous. You've never done anything like this for me before." She was right to feel nervous. Madison and Olivia are still small, and every day they are being raised to remember who she was.